Tony D and Little Jones somewhere behind me, and this is a screenwriter's take on episodes 5 through 8 of The Penguin. Yeah, I binge watched the last 4 episodes, and they kind of blur together, so just gonna have to do the rest of the review here. Smash a like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books. The links are in the description. Comedy Horror in South Jersey. It's the Pineys, books 1 through 16, available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. Okay, so first my non-spoiler review. There's a lot of good here. Again, most of it's Colin Farrell. His performance, his makeup, all amazing. The show itself, Gotham itself as a prop in the show, pretty damn amazing. The look of the show is just fantastic. The woman who plays Sophia is pretty good. And even Vic started to grow on me towards the end of the series. But problems abound in this show. And without giving too much away, the mafia guys, like when you have a show that's supposedly grounded in reality, and then you, in my view, botch the mafia stuff to the point at which it's just gotten ridiculous by the end of the series, I don't know what to tell you. It seems to me that the makers of the show didn't really want to push the Italian angle of the mafia characters, even though it's clear they're making Italian food, kinda. Although at one point, Clancy Brown makes an Italian dish and uses yogurt, and my girlfriend watching the show was like, "Yogurt? That sounds Greek," and I was like, "Yeah, it's kind of weird." So Falcone and Maroney's are supposed to be Italian. I don't know if the Warner Brothers people said, "Oh, we got to back off the Italian stuff." I mean, look, if you're gonna do mobsters in America like this, I mean, they were screaming Italian, even though I don't think there was a single Italian actor playing one of them. So if you're gonna do it and talk about made guys and all that, do it right. And unfortunately, again, I would give the makeup a 10, Colin Farrell's acting a 10, but I would give the writing a 7, maybe, because although the writing's okay, it seems in the moment fine. Like the mafia stuff's all screwed up. And I can't really get into the details until I get into the spoilers. I did that in another take, and I have to start over because I got way too deep into the spoilers. But there's a lot of just mistakes in that area. Now, you might say that's being a little too nitpicky. I don't think so, because I mean, they spent millions and millions of dollars on this show. Number one, we want a Batman show. Let's be honest, this should have been a Batman show with the Penguin in it. It would have been great. Okay, you're not having Batman, you're going to spin off and do the Penguin. I'll give this to Warner Brothers. At least they introduced the Penguin first before doing the spin-off show. So kudos to you. And people seem to like it. So you can write in the comments your complaints or whatever, but I now see why some people just bailed on this show after episode 4. I mean, I see why. And I can see why at the end of the series, why you would never watch a second season of this. I don't think I would. For reasons I'll get into during the spoilers. So, there's a lot of talent here, and it could have worked. But in order for it to work, one of two things had to happen. Number one could have been they could have portrayed Oswald as a big, crazy Batman villain, as he is in the comics, and have him do all his crazy, Penguin stuff. And then the realism kind of doesn't matter. Since they were going for grounded reality, what they needed to do is probably make a story that wasn't so, changing every single episode. Like everything changes almost every episode. It was too much. It was too much in my view. Too many things happened, and you know, you end up with a situation in which characters are kept simply because, as in the comic book, you can't kill them. You can't kill them. So it's very difficult to do something grounded in reality with characters you know you can't kill. Very difficult. You know. And the problem with a character like the Penguin, he's a bad guy. Now, I think the show kept that very consistent. However, it's a reason why I wouldn't watch a season 2 of this. The ending, I don't really like the ending. I would have liked it a lot better if in the last episode Batman swung in through a window and beat the crap out of Oswald. But it didn't happen. And it's not going to happen. I don't want to watch another season of this character. And that's a huge problem. Characters need to have some redeeming qualities for you to watch them. And I think by the end of the series, Oswald basically has none. It doesn't mean the ending was bad, but again, they could have ended it. They could have done it in such a way that it would have been better, or more grounded in reality. So okay, that's about all I can say without getting into some spoilers. So let's get into that. Overall, I would give the series, I had to drop it down to about a 7.5 now. Overall, it started strong. I liked it, but as the series progressed, too many crazy things in order to, and I guess manipulate the audience into liking it. If you don't think about it too much, it works. But part of it is, for me, I know way too much about organized crime because I wrote books on the subject. But it wasn't far from the reality. So why not do that? I mean, you're talking about a show they spent millions of dollars on. Why not try to keep it as close to reality as possible? Like, the changes they made didn't really gain them anything. Anyhow, let's get into the spoilers. All right, so we're talking about episodes 5, 6, 7, and 8. Basically, the whole series. Things have, at this point, gone completely off the rails as Sophia Falcone has murdered basically her entire family, except for John Vitti. So we're dealing with the fallout of that in episode 5. So she has to, get the cops off her back. Meanwhile, she's kidnapped John Vitti, hidden him in the family mausoleum, and it's torturing him so he'll do what he says. And quite frankly, I mean, it's kind of a bunch of nonsense. It doesn't make any sense. The mob guys would not listen to Sophia. I mean, you could have maybe passed it off. In the earlier episodes, had you implied that Sophia was making some of the mob guys a ton of money. Yes, she had her brother's, super secret project with a new drug and everything. But Sophia never got that operation up and running, really. Never really made any money. Oswald did. You needed to establish that Sophia had some amount of clout within the family, and they just never did that. And the further the series progressed, the more problems she created. And after she kills the entire family, it's like, well, now you're just kind of making this insane. And then Oswald tries to kill all the Maronis and succeeds in killing the son and the mother, but the father fights his way out of prison and then goes after Oswald and teams up with Sophia in the process. And of course, he doesn't just shoot Oz. He has to go through a big rigmarole. Um, but then Oz turns the tables on him, and he has a heart attack, which, was kind of surprising. I mean, I had already heard from somebody else reviewing the show. But, it wasn't that big of a deal because he was an older guy. And that's not the way the mafia guys operate. Not a boss. A boss isn't going to get that hands-on. Especially a boss who broke out of prison. So that was pretty far-fetched too, that he broke out of prison and he's going after Oz, and I don't know, aren't the cops looking for him too? Apparently not in Gotham. And then you had the fight inside Oswald's drug den, which was in the old underground trolley station. And then Sophia finally does a smart thing and sends it an SUV, and it's got a bomb in it, and she just blows the whole thing sky high. At some point, Oz gets out of, the explosion, ironically, diving into the hole where his brothers both drowned. Oh, in that episode. Let's get into that episode for a minute. I forget which episode that was. I guess it was 6. They do a flashback episode where they show that Oswald killed his 2 brothers, right? Essentially. They were playing a game, they were making fun of him or being jerks, and he locked them in this area. It was like some sort of overflow for water in the old abandoned trolley underground. Oswald went home to watch a movie with his mother and cuddle on the couch, and meanwhile it just rained and rained and rained until they just drowned in the tunnel. So, yeah, that seemed pretty extreme. And then the mother apparently later revealed, and that part I liked. I liked the later reveal of this. She knew that Oswald had basically left them to die, but decided to continue to, ignore it and, be his mother and push him to get what she wanted. So that part of it I kind of liked. I mean, I like what they're trying to do. I just don't think they totally succeed in doing it. Anyhow, the big climax of this whole thing, of course, is Oswald being brought to the old jazz club, the Monroe, where he once danced with his mother. The jazz club, the old jazz club in Gotham seemed to be in something that would have been, I don't know, a throwback to the 1920s. The original comic came out in, like the 40s. So back then, jazz clubs would have been a thing. Not really a thing, even in the 80s when they supposedly Oz grew up in the more modern interpretation. I think it would have been more realistic to do something other than a jazz club, but I can kind of forgive it. It's Gotham, whatever. So then he has this confrontation with Sophia, and at some point he manages to break free and get away after a big revelation. After Sophia wants to get Oswald to admit he killed his brothers. And there's actually a really good line from his mother where she says, "I already effing know." And he still won't say it. And then there's a scene where she breaks a bottle and stabs Oswald. Pretty nasty. And then, he escapes with her, gets her to the hospital. Meanwhile, Vic had tried to effect a rescue using the various gangs, but they decide no, they're not coming. And then there's this, again, it gets really bizarre. Like, Oswald goes into City Hall and paints a story for the city councilman to use as a springboard for him to, I don't know, give the constituents something to chew on. So he spins a whole narrative about how the Maronis and Falcones killed each other, and that's why there's so many bodies everywhere. I guess. I mean, they could have kind of done that on their own, but sure. And that somehow gets Oswald something. And then he gets confronted and kidnapped, but not before Vic makes a phone call. And then Sophia's about to get on a plane, and she has offered her entire criminal enterprise, which I don't see her even controlling, but whatever, to anybody who can bring her Oz. So the triads take up the task. They bring Oswald to her, and then at the last second, the lieutenant from the triads betrays his boss in order to save Oz, which kind of doesn't make any sense. Seems to me would have made more money taking over the Falcones operations, even with his boss. But he kills his boss, and by the way, the triads don't exactly operate that way. But he kills his boss and saves Oz, and then all the other gangs, who we barely know, the second in command kills the leader in order to take over. So they'll be loyal to Oz. I guess that could work. It seemed like to come out of almost nowhere. And then the final scene with Sophia is like Oswald's about to kill her, and then she turns around and he's gone, and the police cars show up to arrest her. I don't understand how he set that up or why, but she ends up, ironically, back in Arkham, being cared for by Julian, the doctor, who has some weird fetish for taking care of her and having control of her, which was established in one of the earlier episodes. So the whole thing is weird. I didn't really like it, that ending. And big spoiler ahead, if you haven't seen it, here's what I didn't really like. You get to the end of the show. Now, Vic, as a character, finally started to grow on me, even though I contend like his stammer didn't seem to be very present in the first episode. It seemed to kick up in the second and third ones, but whatever. Vic was finally starting to grow on me, and Oswald kills him because he doesn't want any family. You know, Vic finally is like, oh, you're like family to me. And that triggers Oswald because he doesn't like his family, I guess. Yeah, I don't really buy it. It just seemed a gratuitous scene to end the show with and say, yeah, Oswald's like a friggin' psychopath. You should never trust him. Maybe. I mean, maybe that's true. I mean, it's obviously true in the series, but I thought that was... it didn't really come together for me. That moment was like, what? And that really puts the topper on the entire cake that I don't want to see another season of this. He killed Vic. I didn't even like Vic. And I'm mad he killed Vic. Like, yeah. And then, of course, the ironic ending is he gets what he wants. His mother is... her stroke, she's now a vegetable, as she didn't want to be, but Oswald's going to keep her alive and just talk to her and do whatever he wants. He has complete control over her. I think it would have been fine to keep Vic around. I think that was the one redeeming quality of Oswald. Now that that's gone, I don't care about his character at all. You know, what am I going to do? Watch another season where he brings up another kid and kills him at the end? Like, no, I'm not gonna watch a second season of this. I don't know if they're gonna do a second season of this. Maybe they will. I don't know. Again, I want a Batman show. I would love to see the Penguin in that Batman show. Absolutely, 100%. I would love to see him be a regular character. He keeps coming in. You know, he's a gangster. He runs various operations in the city. Batman doesn't, you know, kind of, he doesn't really go after him specifically. He's too smart for that. Like, that's the kind of character he is. They kind of pushed the Penguin into that mode in the comic, that he, you know, built up a big enough empire that now he's a gangster. He has clubs and money and fame, not fame, but like women, and that part of his character is great because that's the way he is in the comic. But he's also supposed to be super smart. He's not totally smart in the show. He's pretty smart, but it's more like the show's function is to push his smartness, and so his schemes have to work in order for that to be true, even though some of his schemes kind of don't make any sense to me. And it's also tiresome to keep watching episode after episode where everything changes. And it's not to say that Colin Farrell is not a great actor. He's so good in this. And the woman who plays Sophia, very good as well. But, you know, and John Vitti, again, not very Italian, but he's in it. The whole hangman thing didn't really work at all. You know, I would have liked to have seen by the end, if Sophia was going to go crazy, I would have liked to have seen her just put on a mask and be the hangman. And say, well, you want me to be the hangman? I'll be the hangman. And just start hanging people. And be like a worse supervillain than even the Penguin. But if you're going to do this supervillain thing, and you're going to have Batman, you're never going to make this grounded in reality, no matter how hard you try. And this almost could have worked, except, you know, I just don't think it does. It doesn't follow the rules of the Mafia. If you're going to do a grounded in reality thing, follow the rules of the Mafia. And part of those rules would have been, there's the drug. I see Clancy in the thumbnail. Part of those rules would have been, you know, to not make the Penguin a complete psychopath. Like, maybe he could have killed Vic by using him as a pawn. Like, that I could have seen. You know, like, have some scene where, like, you know, Vic has to go check on something, and then the bomb is revealed, and the Penguin basically used him to see if there was a bomb there. Like, that could have worked. But, you know, instead he just strangles him. Yeah, I didn't really buy that. So I don't know what to do with this character, quite frankly, other than I want to see him fight Batman, because I want to see Batman beat the crap out of him. I want to see Batman outsmart him. I would love to see a Penguin Batman movie where the Penguin's the main villain and Batman's trying to take down his criminal enterprises, and he takes him down by being smarter. Because one of the interesting things in the comics is Batman at one point says, the Penguin is smarter than me. I just beat him because I understand his various psychopathies. So that would be very interesting to watch Batman defeat him, even though Oswald is smarter and he's got more things going on, and Batman doesn't see it all coming together, but because of his particular weaknesses, Batman exploits him and basically paints him into his own corner. And then he goes to jail or Arkham or whatever. But, yeah, this show, I got no interest in this show now. I didn't think the ending was spectacular. You know, he's finally in a tux. I'll give it that, and he had a top hat. I do like the bit between him and his mother, but I can't get past him killing Vic. You know, yeah, I can't get past that, and I didn't particularly like the Vic character. Still don't. Um, you know, he's got no one to trust, and he needs some lieutenants or something to work. He needs some henchmen alive. Or who the hell would join his gang? Who the hell would join his gang? And all the time and energy he spent on Vic, Vic was incompetent in the first 3 or 4 episodes. I was like, I don't know why he keeps, having this kid help him. I really don't. And then finally I was like, okay, this is the one side of Oswald, that he's helping this kid Vic, and Vic is finally starting to grow on me. He's finally becoming a gangster, and then you just kill him? Yeah. I mean, I get it. It was a whole family thing. It's to make him kind of psycho, but yeah, I feel like my investment in the show, 50% of it evaporated when he killed Vic. And now I'm left with this character who literally has no redeeming qualities. I mean, the Penguin doesn't have any redeeming qualities. He's a jerk to everyone. His mother, he has no friends. His girlfriend is essentially a paid actress. His entire life is fake. So what am I going to learn in the next season about him? His mother's not coming out of that stroke coma. Vic's gone. He could spin up another guy, but we're not going to learn anything new about him unless his father comes back into the picture. Then maybe. But yeah, I'm out. Kind of a disappointing ending, if you ask me. You may disagree. Your mileage may vary. I think it would have been more interesting to have some redeeming qualities of Oswald. You know? Some redeeming qualities. Or have him... I mean, there could have been a way for him to kill Vic at the end. Something you could have set up in the beginning. Like, I told you, Vic, not to touch my car, kind of thing. And then at the end, he's got some kind of a streak like, oh yeah, I can't have you do that. Instead, it was this weird thing with his family. It's a little too... Like, a lot of stuff on this show is just sort of hinted at, and then it's like, oh, that's true. It's like, I didn't really see that as a thing until way too late in this series. And Oswald changes so many times. Changes sides, just doesn't seem like, on the one hand, it would be interesting to me that if he actually did love his mother. He doesn't seem to love his mother. It would be more interesting to me if he does keep Vic around. Or if he kept him around, and just at some point starts, abusing him. Just basically says, oh, like, it would have been, I understand what they were trying to do. Like, Vic is now finally, like, trusting Oswald, and then he betrays him. You could have had a scene like that and kept Vic alive, right? You could have a scene where, like, he says, oh, now I really consider you family, and it triggers Oswald, and he just beats the crap out of him. And then says, go get my car. And it's like, he'd still be a psychopath, but, not one that kills his own guys. So to some extent, I could have forgiven it if you hadn't killed Vic, but have him kill Vic, maybe if Vic had disrespected him in some way, Or maybe if he had, again, sacrificed Vic in the various games he was playing. I just don't think, realistically, um, you could have, Oswald could have expected to survive this. It wasn't his plan to survive this. I think it should have been his plan. That, to me, is the Penguin. Like, the Penguin should have been able to set it all up so that ending could have happened. And it was Oswald's plan, not Vic's. And that could have been a reason to maybe kill Vic. Like, Vic takes credit for the plan. And Oswald says, no, it wasn't your plan. It was my plan. I did this, 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 and this. And, like, maybe Vic doesn't believe him. And then he kills him. That, to me, would be like, okay, sure. Like, he needs that credit. He needs it. He needs that. He needed that credit from his mother, and now he needs it from Vic, and Vic doesn't give it to him. So he ends up killing him. But again, yeah, I can't watch any more of this. Sorry. Anyhow, I just wish this was a better written show. Again, I would give the writing like a 7. I'd give the show like a 7.5 overall now, because the writing dragged it down. The writing just dragged it down. The writing's not the worst. At least, some of the basic stuff, the characters are consistent. There is a lot of exciting things going on, but it's too much. There's too much in this show. It would have been better that so many people didn't die, that it was a smaller, and you still could have the ending. You still could have had a situation in which Sophia goes back to Arkham, like her worst nightmare. The mother has a stroke, ends up in the hospital. 2 characters had a stroke in this. What's the name? Clancy Brown's character has a stroke. Oswald still wins, but not so many people die. Like, maybe he just outmaneuvers the Falcones and the Maronis, and he's boss of the city. Or, his manipulations do work and they're busy killing each other. That would have been a great scene too. Like, he could have manipulated things in such a way that the Maronis came in and massacred all the Falcones. Perhaps with Sophia's assistance, and that to me would have been more realistic. Anyhow, that's it for me, Tony D. Little Joan, somewhere behind me. Sorry I had to do all 4 episodes, but they kind of just blurred together. Really, this was an 8-hour movie, not a show. Not a show. It was an 8-hour movie. And quite frankly, I think it would have been tighter and better to be a 2-hour movie. Yeah, I think they could have done a Penguin movie and taken all the best elements from this series and not kill Vic. Anyhow, that's it. We'll see you in the next one.